Hey, RetconRaider here. Today's episode is dedicated to Laura and Mike, who you probably know better as Bunny and Fox. Thanks for your continued support, guys. And, enjoy the madness. That said, let's get started. It had been almost a week since Rowan and the others had left to meet with the mysterious Baron, and things had grown steadily worse in their absence. We were still doing our utmost to maintain some semblance of normalcy around the hamlet, but it was becoming more difficult by the day. I worked alongside the local guild hall to make sure our recruits were being specially trained to help contain the spread of the Crimson Curse. By day, our uninfected recruits patrolled the streets, and by night they would patrol the cemetery to make quite certain that the dead would stay in their graves. As for the infected among us, their movements were still being restricted to well-secured areas like the Abbey and the Sanitarium. Despite their increasingly vocal objections, the forced confinement seemed to be doing them some good. With the temptation of fresh blood removed, they were finding it easier to control their baser instincts. It certainly wasn't a cure, but it was at least a step in the right direction. Rowan and the others returned on the night of the falling star. The Baron had been just as cruel and twisted as Alistair had feared, and the invitations had all been part of some sort of depraved game. Still, our party had somehow managed to escape the trap, and even better, they had gathered a great deal of new information about the Crimson Curse in the process. I was going through Rowan's exhaustive and oft-rambling reports when the falling star finally landed. The sky lit up with a bright blue light and the earth quaked beneath our feet. No one seemed quite sure what had happened at first, but as the light subsided, an ominous glow appeared on the horizon. The early reports were confused. Our scouts claimed that the farmstead had simply vanished, that roads now led into nothingness, an abyss of glowing crystals and empty space. But then, soon afterwards, the sightings began. Buildings and people would appear and disappear seemingly at random, as if the entire region had somehow been unhinged from reality. What was I supposed to do in the face of this new madness? The farmstead had presented a fleeting moment of hope for the estate, but now it had just turned into a new flavor of nightmare. Still, despite this unnatural disaster, my closest advisors reminded me that we had to act quickly. There could have been survivors down there, in this new crystalline abyss. That horrible thought was enough to keep me grounded, for the moment at least. I assembled a rescue party with hunters to scour the ruins for survivors and healers to treat their wounds. It was an ultimately futile effort, of course, but we had no way of knowing that at the time. Life on the estate was just one cruel cosmic joke after another. After all our best efforts to grant our newest settlers some semblance of a normal life, it was all undone in a single, blinding instant.
Blight had struck the harvest again that year, and the miller was desperate. He came to me, hat clutched tightly in filthy fingers, stinking of sweat and manure. Seated comfortably in my observatory, surrounded by telescopes and other delicate apparatus, I recognized his misfortune as an opportunity, and I agreed to lend him my expertise.
Hey, RetconRaider here, and welcome back to episode 31. I know, it's been a while since the last episode, but hopefully we can get things moving again. Now, today, we're obviously taking our first hands-on look at The Color of Madness, the latest DLC released by Red Hook Studios. I'm actually pretty familiar with the DLC already, so I'm not really anticipating any significant difficulty here, but this is Darkest Dungeon. Anyway, let's take a quick look at our heroes. Istvan von Ungarn. Fox. Cavendish. Bunny. Alright, just beyond this gate there's a veritable horde of strange new foes just waiting to confront us. Let's not keep them waiting. Good luck, heroes. You're probably going to need it. Alright, so if you haven't watched my overview of the new DLC, we're basically locked into an endurance battle. Individually, these new enemies are actually pretty weak.
Continue the onslaught. Destroy them all.
The problem is that when you kill them, more will just spring up to take their place. Like the tutorial says, you basically have to keep killing them until you filled the kill meter on the top right corner of the screen. It actually ends up significantly changing the overall dynamic of the game, because you have to approach these endurance battles very differently than you would a normal fight. At any rate, we've got a ways to go before we finish filling that meter. Let's get back to killing. Ah, there's our first crystalline aberration. We'll go for the crystal in a second, but first let's see if we can take out this scarecrow. Ah, of course. It's fine, we've still got this under control. Basically, if we don't end up destroying that crystal fast enough, it'll end up exploding, inflicting serious damage on our party. Fortunately, they're very fragile.
Press this advantage. Give them no quarter.
Ah, and there's our first plow horse. Those guys are definitely bad news. They're the only new enemy that can mess up your party formation. Let's see if we can stun this guy before he hits us with any of his big attacks.
Destroyed.
Alright, well, let's focus fire and hope we can take this guy out before he goes into stealth.
Prodigious size alone does not dissuade the sharpened blade.
Very nice. That actually puts us ahead of the curve. Okay, let's toss out some quick healing. There we go. There's our first foreman. The farmhands are individually weak, but they get a whole lot more dangerous once you've got a foreman on the field. A lot of his attacks focus on buffing up the farmhands or giving them extra actions in combat. We'll need to take him out quick, but obviously that's a bit tough to do when he's hiding in the back like that. Okay, that buys us some extra time.
Their formation is broken. Maintain the offensive.
We could try dragging the foreman to the front, but it's easier for us to just kill his minions.
Confidence surges as the enemy crumbles.
Oh, one other thing that's worth mentioning is that when you kill one of those crystalline aberrations, it actually heals you a little.
Another one falls.
It's not much, but it can definitely help. There's our next wave. Another farmhand and a scarecrow. The scarecrow's currently stealthed, so let's bring him up front. There we go. We still can't target him, but now Istvan will be able to hit him with area attacks.
Festering fear consumes the mind.
You're given a lot of opportunities to heal your characters, but very few opportunities to restore their sanity. Okay, that takes care of the foreman. Ongoing stress damage is definitely bad news, but that's what the laudanum is for.
Great is the weapon that cuts on its own.
It's going to be a problem if we can't target that scarecrow. Well, the scarecrow's out of stealth. Let's see if we can neutralize it before it hides again.
The slow death. Unforeseen. Unforgiving. As the fiend falls, a faint hope blossoms.
Not bad. We're actually doing pretty well here.
Another abomination cleansed from our lands. Compassion is a rarity in the fevered pitch of battle.
Okay, I guess we've got some time before the next wave shows up. Let's toss out some more healing.
Soothed. Sedated.
There we go. Back to the killing.
Decimated.
They're actually starting to gang up on Bunny. Nothing to worry about just yet, but we'll have to keep an eye on that.
Slowly, gently. This is how a life is taken. Eradicated. Annihilated.
Nice. That's another wave down. We're really chewing through these guys.
The flesh is knit.
Ah, they brought a plow horse this time. Alright, so that thing just went into stealth, which is a problem. It only does that before making its biggest attack. We're probably not going to be able to kill it before it makes that attack, but we at least have to give it a shot. Alright, well, we tried. We'll just have to deal with getting trampled. It's only minor damage, but we've been knocked completely out of formation.
Compassion is a rarity in the fevered pitch of battle.
Of course, it helps if you plan ahead for this sort of thing.
Grievous injury, palpable fear.
Let's start getting our guys back into formation.
A momentary abatement.
Oh, this might actually be the last one.
Obliterated. Back to the pit.
Well, maybe not. Okay, so we've got a little more killing to do. Fortunately, it's just farmhands. This really shouldn't take us very long.
Remind yourself that overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer.
I don't know, narrator. All things considered, that went about as smoothly as it possibly could have. Though this was just a glorified tutorial. Okay, so that gets us a small amount of gold and our first batch of crystals. Not enough to actually do anything with, but it's a start. We also got a few level ups and a whole lot of negative traits. Wow, compulsive, nocturnal, a couple of diseases too. This might actually be one of the least rewarding victories we've had in a long time. Well, I guess that's just Darkest Dungeon. Anyway, let's head back. The fate of the farmstead was something that mystified even our most learned recruits. It had been completely and utterly destroyed by the falling star, but a twisted, mocking echo had been left standing in its place. There had been no survivors for our party to rescue. No one had survived the impact. And yet now, the region had become overrun by the soulless husks of the unfortunate farmers who had once lived there. Cavendish had become utterly fascinated by the nature of this new crystalline landscape, chattering away manically with his arms full of glowing samples, but the rest of the team had been quite disturbed by the entire harrowing ordeal. They had been left relatively unscathed by the battle, but I feared that it would be quite some time before they would recover from whatever it was they had seen. I now found myself grateful for the towering walls that my ancestor had thought to build. While their original intent was still a mystery, they now served to contain this new madness, with a few rare exceptions. Word had not yet spread of the farmstead's destruction, so aspiring settlers were still arriving by the wagon load, and some of them claimed to have seen smaller stars falling from the sky in the wake of the first one, scattering all across the estate. Few of these new arrivals remained for long, once they had learned the truth of our situation. One brave soul proved to be the exception, a rough-and-tumble fellow named Kurt Falkenberg, who insisted he could guide my men to where one of those smaller stars had fallen. It seemed like an absurd claim, of course, but given what Bunny and the others had encountered at the old farmstead, it wasn't a claim we could afford to ignore. If this fallen star was something valuable, then perhaps Dakram could assess its worth. If it held the secret to whatever happened at the farmstead, then maybe the Commissar could glean some answers. If it was just some sort of celestial abomination fallen from the heavens to plague us, then surely Gwydden could kill it. I had planned for every possibility, or so I thought at the time. What I hadn't predicted was that we weren't the only ones curious or desperate enough to go looking for the thing from the stars. Oh no.
You are not alone in this place. The Fanatic is on the prowl, and he smells your sickness.
Okay, so, we obviously came into this looking to face the new mini-boss, and we may have gotten a bit more than we bargained for. Alright, well, I'm not giving up just yet. We'll at least make a token effort towards completing the quest.
Watch your step.
Not off to a great start. Oh.
A shuddering, crystalline bulk.
Well, this is actually exactly what we were looking for. I mean, don't get me wrong, this thing is still very dangerous, but we're a lot more prepared to take this on than we are to take on the Fanatic. At least this way, if we do die, we'll die fighting an unholy abomination from beyond space and time. I'd say that's slightly preferable to being burned alive. Anyway, the first part of this battle should be pretty easy. We just need to stack as many DOTs as possible. Oh, okay. Kurt just got stunned. That does make things a little more difficult, but we should be fine. There's some very heavy blight damage, but that's what the antidotes are for. We could take out that crystal for some healing, but let's stay focused on the boss.
Masterfully executed.
Now Dakram can take out the crystal.
Executed with impunity.
Come on, Commissar. See, that's what happens when you flub a healing check. You get stabbed repeatedly with Vorpal swords. Okay, so, this thing is below half health, and now it's incredibly powerful. Fortunately, Gwydden's spear should cut right through that 80% protection. Nice. Keep piling it on.
Exposed to a killing blow.
That's fine. I think we'll survive a 2 damage crit.
Another one falls.
Okay, healing. Take 2. Oof. A little better, but not by much. Alright, we've got this thing on the ropes. 1 or 2 more good hits should finish it off. Ah, so close.
Weakened. to the pit.
Okay, we're fine for now, but we really need to finish this. There we go. It's over.
It came from the stars. Let it return to them.
Well, that was a bit closer than I would have liked, but we made it through. And we got some halfway decent rewards, too. Of course, now we're in pretty bad shape, and we've still got the Fanatic to deal with. Honestly, we'll probably just end up abandoning the mission, but I'd like to get at least a little more treasure before we do.
If only treasure could staunch the flow of otherworldly corruption. Impressive haul, if you value such things.
Vampires. Why isn't the Fanatic going after these guys? Well, let's see if we can get through this without any new infections.
The slow death, unforeseen, unforgiving.
Of course. Welcome to the team, Kurt. Alright, let's just get this over with.
Continue the onslaught. Destroy them all. As the fiend falls, a faint hope blossoms. Eradicated. Success so clearly in view. Or is it merely a trick of the light?
Honestly, the Crimson Court DLC can really get obnoxious sometimes. Okay, so from what I understand, the Fanatic can only spawn in hallways, so if we get lucky, we might actually be able to avoid him long enough to finish this quest. Okay, this is a pretty big risk, but let's try going in blind. More vampires. I guess they won't be happy until they infect the Commissar. Well, at least we're dodging most of their attacks. Kurt needs some healing, though. Let's get Gwydden back up front.
Destroyed. Press this advantage. Give them no quarter. Their formation is broken. Maintain the offensive.
Oh, come on. Had me worried there for a moment.
Confidence surges as the enemy crumbles.
Okay, that's a little more treasure. In fact, we're going to have to start dropping supplies if we want to make room for this stuff. Alright, we're not sticking around much longer, so let's burn off the holy water and eat the rest of our food. There we go. Now, let's see if we can get to the next room without the Fanatic showing up.
Another mariner, another misfortune. A fortune, waiting to be spent.
Okay, so far so good. Ah, and we scouted too. Looks like the next hallway's clear. There's a little more treasure. And that trap will heal some stress. Oof. Of course. Well, I took a gamble and I lost.
Adversity can foster hope and resilience.
That certainly could have gone worse. Nice. Oof. And there's our hallway encounter. Okay, well, we're definitely not in any condition to fight the Fanatic, so we're going to head down the hallway, loot all 3 of those containers, and then I think it's time to abandon the mission. I'd love to stick around, but it's just not worth the risk.
Darkness closes in, haunting the hearts of men.
Besides, we already accomplished what we came here for, which was to kill the new mini-boss. Why spoil that by getting everyone killed?
Finding the stuff is only the first test. Now it must be carried home.
Ooh, very nice. Okay, that's the last of our supplies, so we are officially out of room.
As the light gains purchase, spirits are lifted, and purpose is made clear.
Good work, heroes. I think we're done here. All things considered, even though we are retreating, this was actually a pretty good run.
You cannot learn a thing you think you know.
Nice. I'll happily take that 13,000 gold as a consolation prize. Not a lot of change here. That's a shame. I was hoping we'd get our first prismatic quirks. Anyway, we're past the 30-minute mark, so we'll wrap things up for now. Sorry it took so long to get this episode finished. Hopefully the next one will be out in a more timely fashion. See you then.